Deputy Donnelly.
Thanks, Ken Corlett. Taoiseach, at 9 o'clock this evening, your government is going to vote down a bill that could save thousands of companies and tens of thousands of jobs in this country. And it would do so without the need to spend a single penny in public money. Every year, Taoiseach, hundreds of companies in Ireland are shut down that don't need to be, because we don't have a functioning examinership process. Here's how badly it's broken. In the last 3 years, 4,700 companies have declared insolvency in Ireland. And of that 4,700, only 64 have availed of the examinership process. Now, many of those companies could have been saved, and in other countries they would have been saved. But instead, here, they're forced into liquidation and all jobs are lost. I have an estimate, Taoiseach, from someone who works in examinerships that about a quarter of the insolvencies could be brought through a proper insolvency process. Now, that means that over the last 3 years, well over 1,000 viable Irish companies have shut down because they don't have recourse to examinership that's fit for purpose. The Company Amendment Bill 2014 makes examinership a real option for struggling companies. It makes it cheaper and faster. It cuts legal fees for the examiner by about €50,000, and it maintains judicial oversight and authority. Now, the main concern raised last night by Minister Bruton and by several Fine Gael backbenchers is a belief that this bill would place an unfair burden on creditors, and they were speaking, I think, in particular about smaller unsecured creditors like suppliers. Taoiseach, the bill would do no such thing. Under the current examinership process, creditors don't often go to court. If they do, they have to choose to go, they have to hire lawyers, and they have to pay for those lawyers themselves. In this bill, creditors can go to court anytime they want. Again, they have to hire their lawyers, and they go for the same reasons as they currently go. What does change, Taoiseach, in this bill is that the examiner doesn't have to keep going to court for largely procedural, unnecessary reasons. And he or she doesn't have to keep hiring lawyers. This leaves more money in the company, which critically, Taoiseach, leaves more money for the creditors. So, Taoiseach, companies all over Ireland are screaming out for a viable examinership process, which this bill provides.
Thank you.
Creditors want this bill to pass because it leaves more money in the company, which leaves more money for them. The Small Firms Association, which represents companies which would go through examinership, and their suppliers, wants this bill to pass. The only group of people I can find who don't want this bill to pass is this government. Why is that, Taoiseach?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, you're wrong. The change in the way we do politics here allows Deputy Donnelly to bring in a private member's bill, and that's a good thing because these things have to be discussed and commented on, and that's your right. Now, you were spoken to by Minister Bruton. He had discussions with you about your bill and about what the government are doing in this. Your bill does not do what you say. It is legally unsound, and it is potentially damaging to other creditors. So the government are not going to accept your bill on that basis, because government have already changed the rules here to allow for SMEs to go to the circuit court and not have the costs of high court and all that goes along with that associated with it. And government have also extended the remit of the Cabinet Subcommittee dealing with small and medium enterprises to cover this area also. And the targets and the objectives set by government for the banks, the evidence now shows, Deputy Donnelly, that by the end of this year, the vast majority of small and medium enterprises that are suffering overhang from the boom time will be back in good shape by the end of the year. So it's for that reason, and for the fact that you were spoken to courteously by the Minister for Jobs and Enterprise, that the government are not accepting your bill. We regard it as being legally unsound and unsure and unfair to other creditors. That's why.
Deputy Donnelly.
I've had the bill reviewed by senior counsel, and I would love to see the legal advice that says it's legally unsound. The bill is not legally unsound, and if there are aspects of the bill which need to change, which undoubtedly there are, we don't have access to the AG's office, then that's what the legislative process is for. Now, Taoiseach, it must be incredibly frustrating for the owners of businesses who are insolvent and who could be rescued to look in and hear this kind of talk. The SME sector, as we know, employs 7 out of every 10 people in the country. Now, according to the Central Bank, about half of the loans currently outstanding to the SME sector are in trouble. That's €25 billion. And we know from the ECB that it's harder for small firms in Ireland to access credit than it is in most of the Eurozone. Now that means that in the coming weeks and months and years, a whole lot more Irish companies, viable Irish companies that are insolvent, largely for legacy debt issues, are going to go to the wall. They don't have to go to the wall, but your government is sitting on its hands.
Thank you.
This bill isn't a stab in the dark, Taoiseach. It was compiled with the help of a solicitor, Barry Lyons, who's handled over half the examinerships in the country. This is not wishful thinking. It has had legal opinion on how sound it is. Taoiseach, the bill could easily be accepted by your government this evening and changed as needed and as required by the Minister and by the committee. And indeed, several members of the Committee for Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation said here last night in the Chamber that they want the bill to come through second stage and they want to get their teeth into it. Now, Taoiseach, you can wait for another report and you can set up an interdepartmental committee and we can see what happens. And every single week that we wait for a different version of this bill to come through, viable companies and jobs are going to be lost in this country. Or, Taoiseach, you can seize the initiative, you can take the momentum, you can use my bill as the structure, and then you can amend it as required. Why, Taoiseach? Why, if creditors and businesses and examiners are all saying that we need this and that it will save jobs, will you not take this as a template, bring it through this evening, change it as needed, and then get it out there to stop businesses shutting down in this country that don't need to?
Thank you.
Well done.
Taoiseach.
The answer to the question is, I think it's a great idea that deputies should be able to bring forward private members' bills. Yes, yes. You, Deputy Donnelly, were in conversation with the Minister for Jobs in this case. You could have said, yes, I see your point, I see the government's point here, I am willing to change my bill to accommodate where the government are headed here. But you weren't prepared to do that. You were not prepared to do that. You were not prepared to do that. And it's all very well to come in here with your opportunity and say, this is my bill, this is the way I want it to be. If you're not prepared to kind of work with the Minister for Jobs in this case, well then you have the opportunity to have your name on the bill, but it's not going to go through because I'm telling you, as far as government are concerned, it's legally unsound and it is unfair to other creditors. And it's not true to say that you're setting up another interdepartmental group. We already have a specific cabinet subcommittee dealing with small and medium enterprises and banks, and the objectives and the targets set for the banks are being achieved, and by the end of this year we expect that the vast majority of those, as I said, who were in trouble since the days of a previous administration will be in good shape. The CLRG, whose recommendations we are implementing, had represented all of the business interests involved here. So it's not as you say, Deputy Donnelly, and the next time you come with a private member's bill, I'll welcome that. But if you're prepared to engage with government in amending your bill to deal with what we want to do here, that's a different matter. I might point out that government have also set targets for the pillar banks in respect of SME credit access. We're working through the Department of Finance with the German KfW credit bank for possibilities, and you see an increasing trend of corporates acquiring commercial banking licenses to lend credit to firms which use their own technology, their own equipment at appropriate lending rates. Yes, of course, the SME sector is critical for the development of the country. That's why we have made an absolute government priority of a focus on jobs for this year. And that's why 20 months in a row the live register has begun to fall. And that's why for the first time in several years, Deputy Donnelly, there's increasing confidence in the SME sector of where the future lies. And that future lies in job creation, greater exports, lean and being competitive, and access to credit is part of that. If you were prepared to have changed your bill to where we want to be, then you'd probably get a different answer. But it's not a case of just turning down Deputy Donnelly's bill. It's legally unsound and it's unfair to other creditors.